G'day guys and welcome, my name is Michael and I'm the DeadAussieGamer here to share with you my tips, tricks, ideas and strategies for playing and running tabletop role-playing games. Today's video we're going to be talking about the best boss monster. That's right, it's not the best, it's my best, right? It's the one I love playing, it's the one I love running. It is something that I use very sparingly because I don't want to frighten my players. It is the best boss monster I've ever come across and it's the best boss monster I know how to use. But I'm not so crass as to tell you what that monster is straight at the start of my video. What do you take me for? Come on. What would this video be if I just told you straight away? What I'm going to tell you, however, is how I use this boss monster so that you guys at home might play a game where you try and guess what the monster is. Now, preemptive clue, there are many different types of boss monsters. There is the beast boss monster. There is the tyrant, the warlord boss monster. There is the sudden plot twist boss monster. This boss monster is, of course, the mastermind. Yes, that's right, moving things and pieces from behind the curtains of subterfuge. That is the kind of monster we are talking about today. And I'm going to tell you some of the things that I do when I prepare to use this boss monster before unveiling its true form. So, sit back, relax, and enjoy as we delve into today's video. Now, any good boss monster needs this. It is foreshadowing. You need to warn the players about what they're about to deal with. Without foreshadowing, our players kind of just meander into boss monsters, and then they're like, oh, it's a Rask. Oh, look at that. Oh, isn't that great? Oh, you know, and it loses a little bit of its impact. But if you foreshadow it properly, oh, the deaths and devastation that lies in the wake. What could have done all of this? You piece together a mystery where the players unveil the true identity of the boss monster, which makes it so much more interesting, so much more palatable, and very, very much engaging right off the gate. So, how do we foreshadow this particular boss monster? Well, there are 3 ways that you can foreshadow a good boss monster. Number 1. How does your boss monster impact the grand scope of the world? What omens can you unveil to foreshadow the coming of this particular evil? Now, this could be something like the weather is acting particularly strange. Large torrential storms seem to be swirling over this small coastal town, almost constantly beaten down by the heaviness of the rain that rains down here. It might be that the fish have suddenly disappeared. The harvest has been terrible, and well, if this continues, the fishermen aren't going to be able to survive. Whatever will they do? These little things seem like kind of quest-worthy questions, but really they're just setting building. They're just all about kind of building that sense of ambiance for your boss monster's stage. The second type of interaction for foreshadowing is, of course, the NPCs. What are the friendly people of this town going to say is happening nearby? Maybe they've heard rumors of a goblin tribe that used to attack the village, but now has mysteriously gone quiet as well. They've kind of counted their blessings with that regard because amongst the fish missing and the constant crappy weather, the last thing they need are goblins running around. Maybe there are people who whisper of like the sound of noises or strange dreams that plague certain people in town. These things all coming together foreshadow the idea that something is moving in the background to your campaign. Now, of course, keeping in mind, the point of foreshadowing is for stuff to be in the background. This can also happen during another quest. Someone is stealing food because, of course, with the fish gone, people are desperate, they need food, the baker is being robbed. Oh no, go deal with that for a while. Easy. The third and interesting type is, how does this boss impact the other monsters in the area? Now, we mentioned that the goblins were acting weird. Well, strange things. Goblins have been seen, but not rampaging and biting and stealing like they normally would. They seem to listlessly stare out at the ocean. And if you go out to the east, you can see them lining the cliffs, just staring at something. Who knows what? Now, this type of foreshadowing is fantastic because it's affecting the monsters, and not in a way that's turning the monsters against the party, but making them behave strangely enough that it warrants investigating. And that can then turn into something violent. Sure, they head out to the edges of the cliff, they go to the east, they find these strange glass-eyed goblins, and they don't seem to be harming anyone. But as soon as they go out and they touch one of them, the goblins suddenly go feral. This is a cool way to introduce the idea of a boss monster, that something is working behind the scenes, especially the masterminds. The second thing you can look at doing after you've foreshadowed the monster, right, is you want to make sure that your monster has appropriate obstacles between the party and themselves. Now, as I've said in previous adventures, when you design a plot, you design 3 types of plot. A plot where you stand your ground, a plot where you are moving towards something, and a plot where you are moving away from something. Now, the stand your ground plot isn't really something that works well with this boss monster, because as an evil mastermind, they'll never really be on the front lines. They'll send people to the front lines in order to harangue the group into eventually coming after them, or leaving, either or. So that does not work as a plot for this particular boss monster. But this monster may pursue the group through minions and through tiny little creatures that they've managed to enthrall for themselves. Have you figured out what it is yet? Yes. So they may send their minions out into the wild. The best type of encounter for this boss monster is when the group is trying to uncover their identity and find their location. This is super important because it's kind of got a murder mystery kind of vibe to it, where every little piece should be put together layer after layer to eventually reveal a big picture. What I always do when I do these is I break down the aspects of the character that I want to hide. I want to hide his identity. I want to hide his origin, so what type of monster he is. I want to hide his location, and I want to hide his plan. And once the group has gotten all of these things, that's when they can confront the monster. So I usually leave things like the location for last, or at least leave the last part of the puzzle for that location last. Because if I give them the location first, there's a good chance that my players are just going to rush towards the boss monster, possibly be unprepared, and possibly die. If I reveal my players' plot and not the monster, and they're kind of like, okay, cool, we'll just bumble into where we're going, you don't want to really create these sorts of encounters. You want to make the players work to figure out what this thing is. Because once they do, it becomes 10 times scarier. Once you've decided what you're going to do and how the players are going to interact and get there, you then want to create your obstacles. Now, you don't want to just create mountains and mountains of walls and hit points and stuff like that. A good mastermind understands the layout of the entire landscape, how things interact with one another. You sure could have goblins as minions, but you could also do little things. Like, for example, you could have giants, for example, move the forest to conceal an area that was once not concealed. You could potentially manipulate the birds to leave for the season, and by doing so, trick some of the people into believing that the time of year has sprung something different. The unseasonable weather, the birds are moving. There must be something big and evil and weird going on. Nothing to do with this other thing that's going on. Whatever the case is, you can use the tools that you have in order to hinder the group without monsters, without creatures and minions. All right. Lastly, the encounter. When the group has finally made their way towards the final confrontation, the most important thing is setting up the right ambience. Where is your boss? What are they doing? And more importantly, what is their reaction to the group's incursion? Those few fleeting moments at the start of that encounter are going to be absolutely epic. For me, one of the things I love doing is I love having the group mistake the creature as being dead. They find this throne in the middle of this ancient and dusty library. A desiccated body corpse lies slumped in a chair, clutching onto what looks to be some sort of strange golden orb, and in the other hand, a book covered in dust. And the creature that they see is... Extra points if you can tell what it is from the picture. This creature is called an Alhoon. It is a Illithid Lich. Now, if those two words combined do not terrify you, then you do not know what either of these things are. A Lich is a type of undead who resides their soul within a special rare magical object known as a phylactery. So long as the phylactery remains intact, the body of the Lich may be destroyed countless times, and each time they will still reconstitute with everything about their mental faculties in check. An Illithid is a highly intelligent psionic creature from deep, deep, deep below the lands, whose primary diet, whose primary diet happens to be the brains of other creatures. They are well known for basically making others subservient to them. And in the grand scheme of things, the plans of an Illithid can span generations, as Illithids themselves are a hive mind, sharing common knowledge from generation to generation. These are some of the most intelligent, cunning, and ruthless creatures in any and all realms. I love them because, first of all, they're undead. I love undead. And secondly, they are Illithids, and I love Illithids. The combining of these two elements is just absolute gold for me, and I relish any chance I get to use them. So there you have it. This is the best boss monster. Why is it the best boss monster? Because, number one, it can make any other monster its minion. If you like the idea of another boss monster, like a Tyrannosaurus Rex that happens to be a vampire, great. Fantastic. Drill a hole in its head and replace its brain with a green goo that turns it into a mind thrall for this Alhoon, and Bob's your uncle. Your boss monster has now been brought to bear by this creature, and it still adds the element of any boss monster into its own scope of encounter. It is not only that, but it is also a reasonable creature. It is something that can use its intelligence, its skill, its cunning, its guile, all of its abilities to be able to work and manipulate the players and the characters in any way they wish. This, for me, is one of the most versatile monsters, one of the most awesome boss monsters, and one of the ones that I love, love, love keeping in my back pocket. So there you have it. The best boss monster is, of course, the Alhoon. There you go. Thank you so much for listening, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, bang on that like button, hit the subscribe button, knock on the bell if you want to be notified anytime another video comes out. If you guys have any questions about an Alhoon, then Google it, or you can leave questions in the comments, because I check the comments and I make sure that you guys get answered, because you guys are what make these videos worth making. So thank you once again. Be sure to check out all the links and all of our social medias. Until next time, as always, game hard or die trying. Good night, everybody.